When Boris Johnson declared on Monday that this week was going to be Crime Week, we don't think this is what he had in mind. The Metropolitan Police this morning confirmed that they were wrapping up the Partygate inquiry, and they did it in quite a confusing way, which we think is worth picking apart a little bit. Here's what we know. 83 people have been fined for gatherings in Downing Street and on Whitehall. In total, 126 fines were given out. 55 people got one fine. The other 71 fines are shared between 28 people, each of whom were given between 2 and 5 fines. And the Met have confirmed that they didn't ratchet up the amount of money that each person was fined for multiple offences because they didn't think that would be fair. What we know for certain is that the Prime Minister is one of the 55 people who only got one fine. That was for his birthday party in the Cabinet Room. His wife, Carrie, is another one of the 55. She was fined for the same event. And Rishi Sunak also is one of the 55 and was fined for the same event. We also now know that Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, who was originally put in charge of investigating Partygate, which he eventually had to hand over to Sue Gray, did not get a fine, despite us knowing for a fact that he was also at the Prime Minister's birthday party. We know Boris Johnson attended 6 events on the 8 dates that the Met were investigating, but for reasons best known to the Metropolitan Police and Mr Johnson's lawyers, he was only fined for one of those events, which kind of takes us on to what we don't know. We don't yet know which parties resulted in which of the fines. The police have only broken it down so far by date, and some dates had multiple parties that all took place on the same day. We don't know really why Boris Johnson was fined for his birthday party, which most people agree is one of the least egregious offences, and not for some of the more serious ones that took place in his house on his watch. We don't know who the other 52 people are who have been fined. We know at least one person was fined 5 times, but again, we don't know who they are. And of course, we don't yet know what is going to be in Sue Gray's report, which is now likely to be published next week. So that brings us to what happens next. Once Sue Gray's report has been published, Boris Johnson is going to come to the Commons, possibly make a TV address as well, explaining himself. And in that address, he'll have to square away a number of his previous statements. Chiefly, considering it's been confirmed that he was at 6 parties and was fined for one of them, he'll have to explain his claim that he was unaware of any of the parties taking place and that he'd been assured that all the rules were followed at all times. Now, this explanation is going to be key to the months ahead. Don't forget, Boris Johnson is facing another inquiry in Parliament for having allegedly lied to the Commons. He's also promised in the Commons that if it was proven that rules were broken in Downing Street on his watch, then there would be consequences for those responsible. And he'll be under pressure to give some detail on what those consequences will be for the people who have been issued fines, which include him. On top of that, there's going to be a lot of questions about how he managed to get away with just one fine when dozens of his staff were slapped with fixed penalty notices. It may seem to the public, and possibly to his staff, that the PM, who had access to expensive private lawyers throughout the investigation, lawyers that weren't made available to his own staff, had managed to get off on a technicality. Now, a few months ago I was told by some insiders that in some ways the PM avoiding any more fines wouldn't actually be the best outcome for him, especially when it's all been announced today in such an opaque, borderline cryptic way. It's left so many questions unanswered and left the Met and Number 10 open to accusations of a whitewash, and a lot of Number 10 junior staff and junior civil servants are likely to be feeling today like they've been thrown under 126 buses by their boss. Boris Johnson's top team might have seen the news this morning, sat back in their chair, breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that the nightmare of Partygate was all over. I think they're going to be disappointed.